Sounds good. Okay, welcome back. We're jumping from YouTube back to Facebook. We're all over the place here, but we'll be here where you're watching us right now for the remainder of the day until 5:30. And to kick off this final block, we have members of our recently created BTI Computational Biology Center, led by Suzy Strickler, who's right here. Suzy, welcome. And who have you brought with you today?
So I have brought with me two of the three consultants that we have at the BCBC. So Adrian, maybe you'd like to talk a bit about what what you've been up to.
What have you been up to, Adrian?
Yeah, so I'm one of the consultants with the BTI Computational Biology Center. And yeah, we, in addition to the research projects at the BCBC that I think Suzy will talk about, we make ourselves available to other researchers here at BTI and just provide support in terms of dealing with the massive amounts of data that they're getting and sort of interpreting that data and figuring out how to analyze it, process it. Yeah.
And then we have David Lyon.
I'm also a consultant, and I think you've stolen everything that I could possibly say about Jeff.
Do the same thing.
Yeah, I do the same thing. We work on different projects, though. So
Yeah. And I should say that all of us are members of the Mueller Lab, so we also have our own individual research projects that we work on as well. And there's also a fourth consultant that couldn't be here today, Yi Zhang, who's in the Fay Lab.
Okay, so we talked to the Fay Lab earlier, but some of the people watching probably were not tuning in at that point. Maybe they were. If you were, then we applaud you. Give us a quick overview about this crazy thing called bioinformatics and why this kind of increase in demand for services like what you provide.
Yeah, so bioinformatics is a huge thing right now, and I think it'll continue to be for the foreseeable future, for sure. And I think really why in the past several years it's become a more important thing is that there's so much data coming out of the labs now. So, you know, when you have all of this data, you have to put it all together into something that makes sense. You have to draw some conclusions and formulate some hypotheses about it. And there's no way you can just look at this data. So you really need to have some grip on computational skills in order to handle the data and to find patterns and extract something meaningful from it.
And one thing that seems unique is where you all sit is that, as Adrian kind of alluded to, is you get to really interact with multiple labs around this building. A lot of labs only interact with themselves, but you are a necessary tool for everyone to utilize. And so what's that like? Is it
they're necessary for us too, because that's where the data's coming from, right? So it's a really good synergy between the labs, I think. So we started the consulting, I think it was about 4 years ago, and originally it was Yi and myself, and then just in the past couple of months, Adrian and David joined the team. And there have just been so many projects, grant proposals, papers that have come out of this program that you know, it's been really great to just be on so many different projects. There's never a dull moment. We're always learning something new.
Yeah, some members of the Fay Lab said one thing they like about working in bioinformatics is that it's a more instant gratification than working in the wet lab. Do you find that to be the case?
I think both myself and Adrian can probably attest to this a bit because we both come from wet lab backgrounds. I think I can say that about you correctly, right?
We don't want to be offensive.
Yeah, so definitely. I think that a lot of times in the lab I would find that I wouldn't know why something was working, and I would try to get it to work. And I couldn't. But with the computer, something might not work, but you can usually figure out what the answer is.
There's also troubleshooting that we need to do, but
yes,
the thing is the problem is somewhere in the code, so you know that the answer is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the BCBC. What is that acronym, and how did it come to be, and
Yeah.
what is it going to do?
So it's the BTI Computational Biology Center, and we spent months and months on the name, so don't give me any grief over that.
Great name. It's a catchy acronym, BCBC.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think it works. Yeah. So this came about, I think, as a byproduct from the consulting program when we saw how nice it was having this interface between the labs, the wet labs and the dry labs. And also some of the faculty members here in bioinformatics were very instrumental in moving this forward and making it come to be. So the BCBC really started in June of this year. And there's two main components of it. So there's this ongoing education component, so that stems from the consulting. Also the bioinformatics course that we've been doing since 2012. So that's a course that we do here at BTI, and it's for postdocs, graduate students, even some faculty members have taken it. So that education is a big part of it. And then as sort of the new component that we're adding is an independent research program. So we'll be pursuing some things sort of focused more at non-model organisms, plants and things that interact with them in keeping with BTI's mission. And developing tools, so tools that might be more plant-specific than some of the currently developed bioinformatics tools and algorithms.
Great. And is that pretty much, where are we at now? Are we fully up and running?
Oh, no,
No?
we're just getting started.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now we've been pretty furiously writing proposals for some of our project ideas. You know, as I said, it's great that these two wonderful people have joined the consulting, so we're able to provide more support for people here at BTI, because Yi and I were getting pretty overbooked for a while. So that's been great in freeing up a little bit of my time, so we can think a little bit more about what research we might like to be doing, and you know, hopefully get some projects funded.
Yeah, so we talked about your work internally. Are you, will this center have an external collaboration as well?
Yeah, I think that, you know, we have had that already. It seems that we have a pretty good track record of people reaching out to us. So not just people reaching out to us here at BTI, as you would expect through the consulting, but also Cornell affiliates. So we work with some faculty members at Cornell on some projects. And then we also have collaborators worldwide. So as part of Lucas's group, we still are heavily involved in the coffee project and also coconut project. So that involves researchers from Europe, from the Philippines. So definitely, you know, there's a outreach connection worldwide.
We had a visitor from Brazil this summer as well.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
were helping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are a number of people that come to the lab to learn more about bioinformatics and get training. So yeah, there was a visitor. We're working with someone right now on cactus.
Okay.
So cactus transcriptome. We just had a paper out, I think it came out yesterday, with some collaborators in Pakistan. So looking at cotton leaf curl virus. So they were here last fall, and they spent the winter here.
That's right. I do remember talking with them.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you're applying for funds.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where that money would go? Do you have like some projects lined up that you're looking to tackle?
So there've been quite a few things that we've submitted, and we're waiting to hear back. So one of the projects that we started out, this was the first thing I think that we actually applied for, and this was a small sequencing award that we did get it in the end. So this is from the Arnold Arboretum, and this is developing genomic tools for the American beech. So right now they're succumbing to beech bark disease, and there aren't a lot of tools really available for it yet to understand what's going on there. So we got a small award for sequencing through the Arnold Arboretum, so we'll be doing that, and then also supplying them with an actual tree that they'll have in their arboretum, which will be the one that we sequenced.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. We have another proposal that we submitted back in September with the idea that there are these large collections of plants in herbaria. So how can we possibly connect that data with genomic and transcriptomic data that's coming out of these projects. So we'll be waiting to hear back on that one as well. And then we have some projects where we propose various tools that we'd like to develop to look at, for instance, metabolites that are produced whenever insects feed on plants, so sort of defense compounds, and predicting which ones might be functionally active in those interactions.
So is most of the work that you will do, does that end up being open source?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. Any of the tools that we develop, maybe you'd like to talk a bit about this, David?
Yeah, sure. So all of the tools that we're developing are hosted on GitHub, and the code is available to be downloaded. I've been working on a program with a lab here at BTI to do, what's the best way to explain it? To do determining where chromosomes have crossed over and how genetic information has traveled through multiple lines of breeding. And that is that's an example of a program that is up and available on our GitHub site.
Yeah, it's one thing that strikes me as really important about a lot of the bioinformatics work is that it's not done for kind of, doesn't seem to anyway be done for kind of a single entity. It's something that once it's done, everyone can kind of benefit from.
Yeah.
And I know
If it's documented well.
important footnote.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned you're also connected to the Mueller Lab, and there's a lot of databases that I know
Absolutely.
you all work on there. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about
Yeah.
those? And
Yeah, so I'm not so much involved with the databases in Lucas's group, but it started out with the Tomato Genome Project, so all of the information that was coming out of that huge project, Lucas, created, and his group managed this database for all of that data. And then the nice thing about the database schema is that you can use it for other organisms, right? So if you have something that's set up and it works well for tomato, then you can go and use it for something like cassava. So there's cassava base, there's musa base. Help me out here, guys. I know there's yam base,
Sweet potato base.
sweet potato base, and
Potato
the citrus
base.
screening database as well.
Yep.
So it seems like over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of funding from the Gates Foundation, so a lot of the attention is focused on these roots, tubers, bananas, and the databases are being sort of leveraged for breeding efforts with a lot of, collaborations with the centers in IITA in Nigeria, Kenya. So the databases aren't just sort of a static entity that sits there. It's sort of
right,
a dynamic thing that's being used for breeding efforts.
And both of you are involved in creating tools for those databases that allow breeders and other people to more efficiently and easily access the information.
yeah, it seems like a pretty essential piece of the BTI mission with regards to food production and food security. I mean, finding, using this data
Yeah.
to increase, to improve production
Sharing
for
of
the breeders.
information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great thing. It's all, like David was saying, open source, so everything's out there for people to use.
So where do you think bioinformatics fits now in the overall picture of research? How has it evolved? I imagine it sounds like it kind of came from small beginnings, and now it's becoming a more essential part of all
Yeah.
research.
Yeah, it's all really, I think, the speed of computers. So like the genome assemblies that we do now, 10 years ago, you really wouldn't have been able to do them. So it's really a big part of it is dependent upon, the increase in speed of computers themselves. And also our ability to do these high volumes of sequencing. So the sequencing technologies have just gotten much faster, and the depth of data has gotten much richer.
Yeah, I think also, along with the increasing amount of data that we have access to as scientists, we also, I think bioinformatics as a field in the current moment is acting almost as a bridge between traditional methods and methods that are newly available due to technology. So things like next generation sequencing, which previously was not available, bioinformatics is kind of, instead of being a new field, is an extension of biology itself.
And just to build on that, we were also, even this morning, we were discussing some of the work. So I mean, a lot of bioinformatics seems to have grown primarily recently because of the ease and low cost of sequencing. So that's generating massive amounts of data. But now I think it's also sort of growing to phenotyping or looking at metabolites, chemical composition of plants. So it's kind of going just beyond sort of dealing with DNA, RNA sequence data and kind of integrating all these other things.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, a lot of the times we talk about bioinformatics as taking biology and kind of bringing it into computer science, but I think that bioinformatics as a field is also very useful for, like, as society moves towards having higher computer literacy and like teaching programming in schools, bioinformatics as a field is a way for people who are comfortable with computers to access biology and start understanding, what's going on here, reframing biology in a way that more people can understand.
So is everyone feeling pretty good about the decision to leave the wet lab right about now, or do you still miss it at all? Or
I am mostly, but there are times when I get a little bit of an itch to maybe pick up a
Just
pipette.
want to go in and pipette.
Well, I
It's
mean,
very zen, right?
you do so much for the labs around here. Do they let you ever come in and just
Actually,
play
yes.
like you
Yes,
used to?
Yeah.
they have. So the second year I was at BTI, Nama Amenda, a colleague of mine, and I did some work in Greg Martin's lab. He allowed us to do some work in his lab for a paper that we published.
Great.
So yeah, it's just very collaborative and nice here that you can get that sort of support.
My final question is, if someone or many people are watching and maybe they understand exactly what you do, or they don't at all, but they think it sounds really great and important, how can people support the BCBC moving forward? What kind of things are you looking for? Obviously, it sounds like funding is something you're after. Is there any other way that people can be involved or offer support? Any way to advance your center?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think funding is a big thing. Funding is always a big thing. People can contact us. We do a bit of outreach in the community. So in the past, we've done Girls' Day Out at the YWCA.
Okay.
So teaching girls about plant biology, career opportunities in plant biology and bioinformatics. And we also did the Tech Savvy last spring. So we did some workshops there, and we gave some hands-on demonstrations of bioinformatics in action. So, those are some things that we're interested in doing as far as, getting the word out to the younger generation what bioinformatics can do.
Yeah, you're in a pretty unique position where, in a lot of ways, it seems like you're all a bit on the ground floor of bioinformatics in general. Is it still kind of ramping up? I know it's not totally new, but definitely just the short time I've been at BTI, I've seen it grow and become more and more, embedded in all research.
Yeah, definitely. It's moving along. Even the tools have really come a long way. Whenever I first came here, I remember a lot of things, they just weren't standardized at all. But now, things are really getting better developed and more cohesive, I think.
So it sounds like, the amount of data is a product of, rapidly increasing technologies.
Right.
On your side,
Yep.
are even your tools, or the way you go about your business, is that accelerating as well? Or are you kind of learning new stuff as you go along?
Well, there are more people now, so that helps.
Yeah.
And I think maybe David wants to talk a bit about this, but making the tools scalable.
Yes. I can,
If you want to
so
comment.
one of the driving forces of new tool development in bioinformatics is also the increase of data amount, right? So we have old tools that are good for the amount of data they had then, but as more data is generated, more tools are created. So I think there's a shift in bioinformatics now from creating tools that are applicable now to creating tools that are
Right.
applicable for a long time. And I think that shift is we're kind of in the middle of it right now. Yeah.
And just to give you a point of reference, so right now we're doing a genome assembly for George Jander, actually, for milkweed, and we're running that on a server that has 1 terabyte of memory. So you need, quite a bit of computational infrastructure to do a lot of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Well, we might have to turn this whole place into just a bunch of servers. Everyone keeps growing.
Still need the people, still
Yeah,
need the
as long
wet,
as we
still
still
need
have
the wet
jobs.
labs. Yeah.
Maybe
All right,
the
we'll
first
just
floor.
we'll add a wing.
Basement.
We'll add a
Basement,
wing
there
for
we go.
servers. We won't kick anybody out. Well, thank you all very much for joining us and talking
you.
more about what you do here and shedding some light on the new BTI Computational Biology Center. We're excited about it, and it definitely is something that I think has become kind of a defining characteristic of the Institute as a
Yeah.
whole. And
It's great to hear.
yeah, I mean, it's impressive work, and clearly it's needed and very important. So thanks for sharing it, and
Thanks for
we
having
hope if you're looking for more information on that, you can find more information about the BCBC on btiscience.org. Thank you again, and we will be back in a few minutes with BTI President David Stern.